Hi, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
So on the last episode, we ended up starting the episode sort of talking about passion or purpose. And then we devolved into talking about the democratization of personality types.
You say we, but I actually think that I was ready to talk about purpose. I had my notes.
Oh, I'm the one that devolved, huh?
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear, actually.
Wait till we roll the cameras and accuse me of that. Fantastic. Fair enough. But I think at the end I said, well, we should probably pick up the conversation about purpose on the next episode and talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
I think it's an important topic. And I think that most people believe that if they can just find their purpose in life, things will be a lot better.
Well, I know that I certainly have envied people who seem to know from a very young age, like musicians and athletes, and, you know, like Tiger Woods was given a golf club at 3, and, you know, Ronda Rousey like was given a racquetball racket at 5 or whatever. It's like, wow. Or this person was given drumsticks at, 4 years old, and then they became this world famous drummer. It's like, I wish somebody had handed something to me at like 3 or 4 that I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I think it's kind of like marrying young, like finding your high school sweetheart and getting married and then having this great relationship your entire life. It's very unlikely, but it just handles one of the major questions of life. And so I think that people feel like if they just knew what their purpose was, it would just sort of, it would answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
A lot of questions that just go unanswered for sometimes decades, sometimes your entire life.
When we work with our clients and the students in the Personality Life Path Mentorship Program, because this is a program we do those 8 weeks and we have a live event, I'm noticing, so a lot of people are in transition. Like they're in a transitional moment. And often I would say maybe anecdotally, I'd say about a third of the crowd of the group is in a holding pattern or a waiting pattern for this very thing. They're like, I'm kind of just waiting. Some people are on like 2 years away from retirement. Some people are freshly divorced or have ended a relationship. Some people are on the verge of graduating college or university. Like there's always a coming transition or one that just happened typically for a lot of folks that come to this program. And it's like this holding pattern. It's almost like Joel, Antonia, anyone part of this program, if you could just tell me what my purpose is or help me find my purpose. It's got to be obvious based on my personality type. And I just can't see it.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of shadow work in this program. Like we go way into the shadow and like, maybe it's in my shadow. Maybe it's unlocked in part of my personality I haven't tuned into. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's in my shadow. Maybe it's something that I haven't seen yet. And I'm hoping that going through this program, I can get clarity on what the purpose is that I'm here to bring to the world.
Yeah.
And often it's a reset moment for somebody. And I think that's usually the reflection time when we pause and we go, okay, what is my purpose? Mm-hmm. What am I here to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah. I suspect that one of the things that comes up very quick when people learn about personality types is the question, can this tell me what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, who am I supposed to be dating? Who am I supposed to be partnered up with? Who am I supposed to marry? What career am I supposed to have? What is my purpose in life?
Yeah.
And I do suspect that because type explains so much, the hope is that it will explain that too.
Yeah. And I think that I don't know if this supposed to language is helpful or useful. Like, what's my purpose supposed to be? I don't remember what podcast it was, but a podcast a long time ago, you and I recorded. I asked the question, I said, is your purpose something to be discovered? Or is your purpose something to be decided? Because I think a lot of people feel like it's something they have to discover. Mm-hmm. They have to like figure it out. There is a purpose for life that you're supposed to be on, supposed to, that word again. It's your job just to find your way to it. Mm-hmm. This comes from my old Judeo-Christian training, like my old Christian background. It was like God has a perfect plan for your life. Mm-hmm. And your job as a good Christian is to stay so close to that plan that you're on this perfect pathway that he has for you. And, you're going to make your own choices and things, but the goal is to always get back onto track of what he's got for you. And you have to read scripture and listen for his voice. And this is how you're supposed to find your purpose. So it was kind of presented to me in my youth as like, there's one track. There's a bunch of you have, as a human, you have free will. You can go any direction you want, but there's one track that God has for you. And he's always attempting to get you on that track for this destiny he's got for you in your life. And it might be just being an accountant and sharing, God with people in your accounting firm, or it might be getting into a big position of leadership or being president, or fill in the blanks of whatever it might be God has planned for you. And your job, it feels like as stressful as a child, as a kid, teenager, like, okay, well, I've got to really figure what this is. and you stress about it, and it impacts like all your decisions as a young person. I don't think that's unique to just Christian faith or faith backgrounds. I think we talked about this before too in many podcasts. A lot of millennials got the message when they were younger that their purpose was going to be to save the planet, to save our politics, to save culture. Little Johnny, little Susie, when you grow up, we're counting on you. These generations before you screwed it up. They left us a mess, is the narrative. I'm not saying this. And it's up to you to be the hero and pull it out for us. That's your purpose. And like, okay, so a lot of young people are on the hunt for this heroic purpose that they've been told they're supposed to have.
So you said in a previous podcast, you asked the question, is your purpose something to be discovered or something to be decided?
Yeah. What
was our answer on that one? Do you remember what we said?
I think if I remember, it was with Craig Filick. It was an interview with him or a conversation with him because he was talking about purpose mapping. It's one of the things he does. Mm-hmm. This is years ago, at least 5 years ago, if not more, at the time of this recording. So vaguely, I think we kind of came down to, I think I posited this to him possibly on the show. Now that's coming back to me, my memory's vague. And I think we came down a little bit of a both, which in good positioning of content, it would be good to reveal at the end of this episode rather than not bury the lead, but kind of push it back a little bit to bring it out as a conclusion. But I think it's good to say it probably is a little bit of both as we start.
Yeah.
Because I think when we just go and I would argue that it probably for me leans more to the deciding side. Mm-hmm. It really is a decision. I look at people that just decide what they're going to do and they go for it and they make it happen. And often they find their purpose on the way to that decision. And then there's people that just look for their whole lives and they actually never end up with a purpose because they just go, well, maybe this, well, maybe this, well, maybe this, and it's never anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I, at the time of that recording, I wasn't on my Dharma.
Yeah.
So I think I've been talking about purpose, and I was given this idea probably, when I got into internet marketing way back in like 2009, I got this idea of passion, purpose, and mission. And I really liked this idea that it was a progression. You start with your passion, the thing you're passionate about. And then when you do what you're passionate about, eventually you'll find purpose, right? Like, this is what I give to the world. And eventually it will become a mission, like a crusade, because reasons. And, and I still think that there's something to be said for that progression. I do think that it's oftentimes start with passion, something that you're interested in. And then oftentimes, it ends up being like, I think this is the thing I'm going to do. And then I can appreciate that eventually it would turn into mission. But I also was saying a lot of that stuff and have for a decade. I don't know if I'd call myself a pretender necessarily, but I didn't know that I was on my Dharma until I was on my Dharma. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't know what was missing.
Well, could we say that's a pretty tidy model that doesn't actually bear out in reality?
I think it's a pretty tidy model. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice in theory. Mm-hmm. It's really tight and organized, but is that actually how it works? In our experience.
I don't know if it worked if it did work for me, if it's what eventually led to my Dharma, it's not complete by any stretch. There's like more to add to it.
I don't want to put you on the spot too much. You keep using this word Dharma. This might be a new concept for somebody listening.
Yeah.
So,
I came prepared to define it.
Let's start there. When you say the word Dharma, I think it would be nice to know we have a working definition of what do you mean by Dharma?
Well,
what's that? How's that different than purpose or passion?
It's an Eastern philosophical phrase that's found in Buddhism and Sikhism and Jainism around this idea of one's life purpose, but it encapsulates more than just that idea, which is why I like the word, because it's actually referring to balancing the order of the universe.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just I'm doing the thing I should be doing, but it's like it almost gives this sense to me when I see the definitions of it as like I'm in balance with the universe. Like, the thing I'm doing is part of the order of things. And there's this sense of, if you're part of a collective and everybody's bringing something to the group and they're presenting this thing that they are uniquely suited to do, then they're a part of an order to the group that they're feeding into. So it's like laws of the universe. It's related to laws and order of the universe. And it gives this idea that when you're in alignment with the order of the universe, then you're giving the thing that you are almost like you're made to do.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's actually kind of similar to this idea that God has a wonderful plan for your life. It's like, but as opposed to God, it's kind of more like the natural law has something for you to give. And when you're on that path, then you feel a sense of alignment with the universe.
Yeah.
So I like the phrase Dharma because when I felt it, I felt like I was aligned with with the universe.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was like my purpose, quote unquote, because I've said this before in the previous podcast episodes. I think that we're serially monogamous with purpose. I think we go through many purposes throughout our life. I think we're serially monogamous with passion, and I think we're serially monogamous with mission as well.
Yeah.
Like there's a time period where like this is the mission of my life, but then it might change. And that makes sense because as humans, we're complicated creatures thrown in complicated situations, and the system changes. And so when the system changes, the emergent changes too. So it makes sense that we wouldn't just stick with one as a general rule. In the same way that we tend to be serially monogamous as humans when it comes to relationships. Most people go through multiple long-term relationships. They don't just have one.
Yeah.
Some people meet who they were supposed to be with at the age of 5. I mean, my brother and my sister-in-law knew each other. They have pictures of each other, like standing next to each other when they're toddlers, practically. They've known each other their entire lives. And they got married pretty young, like at 19. And they've been together for, I don't want to age them, but many, many decades, later. So, they're like the person who was given the racquetball racket at 3 and went, oh, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Right. But they did it with relationships. And I think our relationship to purpose is similar. It's like sometimes you get lucky and you just know as a toddler. But most of us, the overwhelming majority of us, have to go through multiple iterations to find the thing that we finally settle on, if we ever do. Right. I mean, I think it's okay to make changes when you're retired.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also this notion of cultural and timeline moments. Like somebody's purpose might be defined by the generation and the culture and the time they live in.
For sure.
I think we've had, you think of like Winston Churchill, right? I don't think Winston Churchill, when he was a child or maybe a young person, thought that his purpose was going to end up saving the United Kingdom during World War II from the Nazis taking it over.
Right.
But it ended up being, that's like the greatest purpose he was put on this earth for at that moment. Like, he rallied the United Kingdom together and said, we're not going to just surrender. In fact, he has that rousing speech, that very famous speech where he basically says, we'll fight them on the air, the land, the water. It doesn't matter. Like they'll have to come into our homes and kill us in our beds before we surrender. We're never giving up. Mm-hmm. And he was made for that moment. And I think people are made for moments in a lot of ways. And I think that's the model we have of purpose in our lives. We are like, man, I'm going to, like we kind of have these, many of us have fantasies about maybe being made for that moment where we're going to say the one thing or do the one thing that's going to really make the difference.
Yeah.
As a cultural moment.
The peak moment of the movie where the music swells and, and that's what we were made for. I kind of hope that that's not the case for me though, because every moment after that then is just kind of like going downhill. It's like a letdown.
We'll just do it at the end of your life. Well, the other thing is context matters too. I'm thinking in terms of like, so I'm super into trees right now. I don't know. I've been in the forest a lot.
You are super into trees right now.
Have I told you about the eastern white pine yet, Antonia?
I have heard the good news about the eastern white pine.
I'm just like, I really like this tree all of a sudden. I'm like, cool. So I planted a few like in our backyard little area, like near the woods area. And I've been going into the forest as much as I can. This autumn during the time of this recording, it's been really warm.
I don't think anybody in our HOA listens to our podcast, Joel. So you can go ahead and say that you chopped a little section out of the shared area to make sure that you were planting eastern white pines.
That's right. So there's eastern white pines rolling, like planted behind our house in some secret locations. So they'll grow really big and tall. And I'm thinking like the purpose for a tree is very different. If it's in a national or state forest, it's very different than if it's at a logging company land that they're going to sell the lumber for, or if it's in my backyard providing shade, or if it's for getting sap out to make, maple syrup. Like trees have different purposes based on the context they're in. Like not every tree is going to be, first of all, the same tree. And then where it's planted and what it's used for matters. And in a lot of ways, I had a friend tell me, and this is connected to something that I also have, because in all of this, I found purpose through a very side door, I think, in my life. And that's where I'm building toward. And I want to talk a little about maybe how type relates to this too, if we get some chance. But I had a friend of mine, Larry, tell me, I was lamenting the fact of having to live on the East Coast a few years ago and some of the challenges of my sons were with their mom in Baltimore City, so I had to be close to them for, custody issues and have them come and see me and stuff. And I really wanted to move to the West Coast or get out of this area. This is all before COVID. And he goes, Joel, I think you should grow where you're planted. And I realized, that's really true. I am planted here. This is where I am. I can't resist the context I'm in. And this idea of a tree contextually has a different purpose based on where it's planted. This idea of cultural moments and generational moments and moments of the world. And so I think that we can construct and chase and decide a big grand purpose for our lives. Like, I'm going to help people and fill in the blank, whatever it is. It could be all sorts of things. But I think there's a lot of purpose available to us that's not so up at the horizon level, but it's right here in front of us, right in our neighborhood, right in our home, right in our lives. Grow where we're planted kind of purpose. And I think that's really what has spoke to me. And the other thing that has happened is as I started to work on building some talent in my life and moving towards some of the things that I wanted, even if it wasn't exactly in alignment with what really juiced me up in a passionate way, I actually found passion over time. Mm-hmm. Like when we started out with Personality Hacker, clearly I'm interested in personality types. But what I say way back in 2010 when we started all this, my purpose in this world is to help people understand their personality type. I don't think I would have said it that way. And in fact, I wouldn't even say that now because I think I've got a much deeper purpose in my life. I think my purpose with Personality Hacker and what we're doing here is to help flip personality types from something that's talked about to something that's operational. I was just talking to Dr. Dario Nardi yesterday about this. I'm like, look, we need people to be doing something with type and then looking up information, not looking up information, then trying to figure out how can I apply this? Start with application and then look for information. That's the flip we need to make with personality types. Mm-hmm. But that's on my hunt for a much bigger purpose, mm-hmm. which is that, and it really is not so much something that I do, it's something I am. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing I've learned about purpose, is it's really about becoming something, becoming this. And maybe that's, again, my personality type. I'd like to explore that. Maybe that's just my introverted feeling or authenticity as an ENFP, talking about becoming something as my purpose. And I look at the introverted judging function in my life to give me guidance there. And that's to help everybody that I encounter find an enthusiasm of being. Whatever they're doing, I don't care. If you're a serial killer, I want you to be enthusiastic about it. I mean, I'm kind of kidding, but I'm trying to make a point in that it's not qualitative to what you have to be enthusiastic about. It's that what you're juiced up about, you should have enthusiasm around and embody it and have it humming off of you. And I feel like if I can show up with enthusiasm on what I'm doing for the being that I've created, the being of my life, myself as a being, but just being in this world, I feel like that communicates to people like, oh, wait, I can have an enthusiasm for whatever I'm here to be.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I would hope for. And that's a very high level abstract purpose in my life. Like how do you put a business plan around that or marketing around that or any tangibility around it?
Yeah.
It's very ethereal. And I found that's kind of like when I get to that level, I'm like, yeah, that's probably more in alignment than anything I could tangibly put myself down to.
Yeah. I don't know if you're totally representing yourself accurately when you say that even if you're a serial killer, you want that person to have an enthusiasm of being in their work.
What do you mean I'm not representing myself accurately?
I don't think you actually want serial killers to be enthusiastically killing people.
Well, I would hope that they would realize it's hard to be enthusiastic towards something that's dark or whatever. I mean, I think...
Yeah, that's low vibration energy.
I say, yeah, the point I'm trying to make by taking it to its extreme is it's not qualitative.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't, I'm not here to judge the quality of it.
Right.
I'm just here to say an enthusiasm for whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. And if it truly is what you're here to bring to the world, I guess, but I mean, I don't know if anybody really says my purpose is to be they're probably broken and damaged and they don't want to be a serial killer.
No, it's a terrible thing. And the only reason why I pause is because I know that we're going to get somebody who's like, what?
That person would be an idiot, Antonia. Because clearly they know I'm using this hyperbolically.
Just calm down. Joel's not actually talking about serial killers. So as you're talking, I was noting that this is another opportunity to look at things in terms of systems thinking.
Yes.
So systems thinking, if you haven't heard every time I try to sneak it into a podcast, systems thinking is an idea that there's no such thing as cause and effect. There are emergent properties of systems, meaning that there's not one thing that leads to one thing.
Yeah.
There are multiple things that if they're all running in a system together, when they operate and run in a system together as they are in whichever system you're looking at, then there's what's called an inevitable emergent, meaning that the result is the only result that can be gotten from that particular system running in that particular way. And I think this idea that is purpose or is Dharma or, whatever we want to call it, is it something that you decide or choose, or is it something that's found? Or excuse me, what was the other one? Was discover.
Yeah.
I would actually say for me, it was something that emerged. It emerged from a system running.
Yeah.
And until I had the nodes of the system set up in a proper order, and maybe I didn't have them set up in the proper order before because some of those nodes were outside of my power. But as soon as I had the system set up in a certain way, then Dharma became the inevitable emergent of that system running. So and I think some of those nodes are discovered, and I think some of them are decided.
Yeah.
And that's why there's this back and forth. Is it decided or discovered? I think some things some of the nodes in that system, and a node is just an influential aspect, something that's happening in that system that is influential. In the same way that a car is a system, and there are influential parts of the car. Like if the engine isn't running, the car is not going anywhere. That's an influential node in the system. If the engine is working fine, then you have to look at other influential nodes like the transmission, right? Or the flywheel or the brakes or whatever.
Or the temperature outside.
Or the temperature outside.
We used to live in Alaska.
You got it.
Cars wouldn't start. Mm-hmm. Everything's working perfectly in the system of the car.
Yep.
But for some reason they're not starting. Well, something in the broader system changed.
You got it.
It's frozen.
Yep, exactly. So there are different nodes in a system that allow that system to operate in certain ways or have certain emergence. And I think Dharma is an emergent. So I'm kind of piecing together what some of those nodes in the system are.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is the node of environment.
Yeah.
Right. Like the what's going on in the outside world. When you talk about Winston Churchill, you're talking about like what was the environment that he was in that gave him certain opportunities to evidence what his quote unquote purpose was. And so environment is a node in the system. And that's one of the ones that is sort of in our hands and sort of not. So you also mentioned timeline in which you live. Well, that's completely outside of our power. Like we rolled the bones.
For now.
Yeah, right. Stop talking about time machines. It's not going to happen. And so I do believe, who was it? It was Stephen Hawking who said that we know that time machines never get built because otherwise there would be tourists. Right. And so it's like, well, we don't have a lot of time. And if they are, they're real sneaky and they do a very, very good job of not letting the cat out of the bag that time machines have been made.
Yeah.
But let's pretend that they haven't. And at least at this time period, they haven't. So we don't get to choose what time period in history that we are born in and live through. That is a node that's totally outside of our system or outside of our control in the system. But opportunities emerge from those moments in that timeline and from that environment.
Yeah.
And whether or not we take advantage of opportunities, that is something that's more a node that we can influence.
Maybe we could say it this way. There's trajectory lines that are sort of like timelines. Like there's a timeline right now. I mean, Elon Musk keeps building rockets to take us to Mars. That's what he's dead set on this. Like he's not going away from it. He wants us to go to Mars. Like that's his number one goal. And so there's this trajectory line and it's like, okay, well, if that's the trajectory and you feel in alignment with that, then you need to be asking yourself, okay, on that trajectory, what's going to be needed on Mars? What's going to be needed in that reality?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're not tuned to that. Maybe you're tuned to a different reality. Maybe it's more of a social cause here on Earth in the country you live in. And so then I'm tuned to that trajectory that I'm going to. So I think timelines aren't necessarily, I mean, there's a broad timeline of time itself, but I think when I think of timelines, I think of like these trajectories that shoot out. You kind of go on a course of life. Yeah,
but Musk nor anybody else would be able to even think about going to Mars if we still had the same, like if we were Bronze Age.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and that's all I'm trying to say is it's like there are certain technologies that are available that allow for opportunities that would not have necessarily existed decades, centuries, millennials ago.
Yeah.
But they are now. And so we're in a certain moment of the timeline of like the span of humans. So what's available here and now? Like what's going on right now? This is also a part of grow where you're planted.
Yeah.
Because like we were planted in this timeline. So that's one of the nodes in the system. And where we're like the moment that we exist is not in our choice. But the trajectories you're talking about are the ones where, okay, so what is possible in the timeline that I'm living in?
Yeah.
And can I do something that's maybe even outrageous? That's a big deal. But I have it in my power, and I have it in the ability of this moment, the technology available or the societies available or whatever. That's something that can happen for me.
So it just brings up this idea of stewardship over things and trajectories. And so when I think of timelines, I almost topicaltize them, if that's a word. I was watching an interview with, who's the guy from Modern Wisdom? I can't remember his name now.
Chris
Anderson, right? Or Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
Was interviewing Eric Weinstein. Weinstein. And Eric was talking about how basically in the 20th century, the pursuit of physics in the sciences was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And like the nuclear bomb during the Manhattan Project. And then there's like trajectory of a timeline of, there was like a lot of development around physics.
Right.
And by the way, I don't understand all of what they were talking about, but then he starts talking about quark theory and string theory and all of this, quantum theory. Mm-hmm. And Eric was positing that might have been insinuated or put in as a red herring in the physics world to get them distracted from some of the development, because they didn't want them developing nuclear technology that could blow us all up or something.
Right.
And so they got distracted here.
Like
and
a hydrogen bomb or something.
It might all kind of be BS or not totally like a thing.
Right.
To kind of take the scientists off a different track. And then he said like, from there,
which is brilliant if that's what they tried to do. Yeah.
And then the sciences have now been hijacked into like biology and social sciences. Mm-hmm. And that's where more of the focus and funding is.
Yeah.
Right?
As opposed to like physical, tangible physics. And engineering.
And physics. And he, in this interview, I mean, it's a fantastic interview. He talks all about the breakthroughs and the inventions and all the amazing things that physics was figuring out. And then also just took a left turn, and now it's social sciences and biology. And the developments aren't as much as we had at one point.
Right.
And so he's just like, that's a time. When I say timeline, I'm saying that there's that physics timeline from the 20th century still exists, mm-hmm. but no one feels the purpose not enough people feel the purpose to connect to that, to steward it and kick it forward. Mm-hmm. Right. But there's value there, but it got off rails. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about our purpose, we're not just thinking about like the moment we're living in and exactly what's needed now, because we're all seeing it from our social perspective and what's happening to us in our lives. But there's a bunch of stuff that's happening either before, during, or after our existence that we can tune into and connect to. Mm-hmm. So when I see timelines, that's kind of what I'm saying too, is like, maybe there's a timeline of that. Like we're connected to the personality type timeline mm-hmm. in a lot of ways. The development of this, we're not the first people to talk about this. Like this comes all the way back from Jung, over 100 years ago, the Myers-Briggs system. Like there's a ton of development and content that's here, and we could take it a whole different direction, or we could honor and steward what was there before and align ourselves with some of the purpose that was already laid down and continue the development of that. Mm-hmm. And that's a decision we'd have.
Yeah.
Right. So there's these opportunities as well to look into your life and go, okay, what trajectories could I connect to?
Yeah.
And you can see into the past where they came from. So you can see the qualitative nature of them as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think tuning into that, I think that is actually a fair point, because tuning into the possibilities that might not be something that's obvious to whatever culture you're in. Right. Like you said, you're talking about going back to a point of origin.
Yeah.
And asking oneself how one can like steward something that was born at a certain time period that maybe got off the rails for a while.
Yeah.
But I think another way of saying that could just be like also thinking outside the box, right? Like not being captured or limited by the opportunities that are just in your small purview, but seeing things that are like, well, what used to be possible that we don't think is possible anymore, or what could be possible that nobody's asking the right question.
Yeah, we're not starting from scratch as much as we think we are.
Yeah.
Right. Even like 20 years ago, it's weird. So many people were into like natural foods and health mm-hmm. stuff. And it looked like we were going to be focusing on changing how we thought about health and society.
Yeah.
And we're going to get away from corporate like food production. Remember back in the day, it was like,
it was all
Monsanto's bad. And it was like Occupy Wall Street. And like, it was going to be like this whole back to like nature. And now it's like corporations are right back in the forefront again. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, there was a trajectory and there was like some purpose that was being developed, but people abandoned it, or they got lost in it, or they got hijacked into a new purpose that's better for some reason. And so they lost the thread.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, not only do we have to connect to this, but that has to be nurtured. It has to be kind of continued. It's not something that it's not going to just happen just because people do this.
Yeah.
Right. So purpose requires us to maintenance it too and be part of it on a long enough timeline.
Yep. Yeah. Well, actually that goes to another node in the system, or think that we do influence, which is dedication or stick-to-itiveness. So is it okay if I
Please
kind of
keep
almost
going.
abandon a little bit what we're talking about here and go to what I think are more
Yes.
foundational nodes? So I do think the moment in the timeline in which we live is a foundational node. And I think it's good to mention it first, even though you have made some good points about there are things that we can control in all of that, or at least choose or decide or see through the lens of. But we're not, I don't think we're in disagreement that you cannot choose when you're born, right? Like that's something that's chosen for you.
Yeah, correct.
Right. And so,
or where you're born.
Or where you're born.
When and where it happens to you.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so that it's important to understand that that's a foundational idea in this idea of purpose, because there are things that can't be chosen that are still relevant. Yeah. They still influence the system.
In systems thinking, that's initial conditions.
Yes, thank you.
So we're taking into factor that when we talk about a systems approach to anything,
right,
we have to account for the initial conditions that system operates in.
Yes, exactly.
So where and when you're born is part of the initial conditions of your purpose of life.
That's right, exactly. And so there are nodes in the system that can't be chosen. But there are nodes in the system that not only can be chosen, but must be chosen. And I think one of those, and it makes me think of Scott Galloway's statement around how don't choose passion, choose talent, and build skill. And I think Cal Newport in So Good They Can't Ignore You also has this argument that that it's better to, instead of waiting for your passion, to build career capital.
Yeah.
And I think both of them have this, like the theory is choose something you can get really good at, not just good at, but great. Like choose something you can, that you can be great at. And I think Scott Galloway's basically his premise is do something that you like, at least don't hate.
Yeah.
Right. So don't choose something you hate, but choose something you enjoy, that you're good at, that you have a natural talent with, and then stick with it. And Cal Newport's like, do it through career capital. So what I'm hearing basically is a node in the system of purpose. And I do, at least with my sort of path of purpose, building skills and getting really good at them was a major influence in me finding Dharma.
Yes.
So I think if it's okay and it's not too self-indulgent, I think I'd kind of like to talk about sort of the phases that I went through that eventually got me to a place where I think that I found that sense of purpose.
Let's do it.
Like the higher purpose. Okay. So I think the track that was laid, because I never knew what I was supposed to be doing. I just always chased skills. And so when I saw an opportunity to build a skill that I thought was like on a principle level, I'm like, that's one that's going to set me apart, right? That's going to be that's a competitive advantage for me to be able to do that. Or just build skill because I'm bored and skill building is more interesting than doing nothing. That was also another factor. But one of the opportunities I had when I was young was to become a skilled public speaker. And I was part of, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, I was part of like basically a weekly school my entire life that allowed me to understand the principles of public speaking and to notice word whiskers and to not say things like, and then understand the cadence of how to talk, how to fillet out a point or to have a single concept or idea and then really expand upon it enough so that another person could understand it. And then how to express and be articulate. All these things were taught to me when I was quite young. And I took every opportunity I could to get better and better at it. And I did it through a lot of impromptu speaking, a lot of just saying, hey, if you need a speaker, let me know and I'll fill in. So a big part of how I got to where I'm at is I took the opportunity to build a skill that most people don't have. In fact, I would say, if I'm not mistaken, public speaking or speaking on a stage is amongst people's like top 3 biggest fears.
I think now it's just talking to anybody you don't know. It's a big, huge fear. Like, I don't think it's even on stage anymore.
Yes.
Like walking up to a stranger and just talking to them. I think a lot of people have anxiety around that.
They do. But at the time that I was young, that was a little bit more normalized. It was like people didn't have a problem talking to strangers, but they definitely had a problem talking on stage. And so I was like, that's going to be a competitive. I don't know how it's going to be a competitive advantage yet. I don't know how it's going to figure in, but I'm and by the way, I was really scared of it at certain time periods in my life. When I was really young, it didn't bother me because, of course, like nothing really bothers you when you're really young. But when I went through what what Timothy Leary would call the socio-sexual imprinting phase, that time period where I was, I hit puberty and now I was like aware of a bigger context. And now I was embarrassed in front of my peers. I went through a time period where I had actually been pretty decent when I was younger, but my voice quivered every time I got on stage, like really quivered to a point where it was super obvious. And I had to push through that to get to the other side. So, knowing now that that's a major part of my story, I would say just sticking with that, building the skill of public speaking was maybe the best gift I gave to myself. And then a little later in my life, I recognized that I no longer aligned with the religion of my youth. And then I had to leave. But the challenge is that I had never known anything else. And so I had to deprogram myself. I had to deprogram myself from all of these beliefs that no longer served me, that were no longer the framework of how I saw everything. And when I was deprogramming myself, I also had to learn how to reprogram myself because everything left a vacuum. So I would say that the next really influential piece of me finding Dharma was learning how to reprogram a mind and to do so voluntarily. And it took me literally years to figure it out. But because I had to, then that was a skill I developed that I don't think is common.
Yeah.
Then I chose personality types as my profession because I had always been interested in it. It has always been something that, even though my interests in other things came and went, that one was steady. So I chose to be in a field of an interest that I just had my whole life. None of this is purpose, by the way, at this point. I had not locked into purpose at all. I would say the closest thing was passion, but I wouldn't even say that I was passionate about personality types. I was just fascinated by personality types. So it was even more of a fascination than a purpose or a passion. And then as a part of that, I had a talent for coaching. So I capitalized on a talent. And by the way, I wouldn't have said that I had a talent for public speaking. I may have had, but I wouldn't have known it because I started so early and because I was so terrified of it during my teenage years.
Yeah.
So whether or not I had a talent for it, I don't know. I just know that I pushed through and built skill. I had a talent for coaching. And so I continued to do that. And I built enough skill in that so that I became very good at it. And then finally, after doing a 5-day live event of Proflyer training, one of the days we were supposed to have, you mentioned Dario earlier, we were supposed to have Dario as our guest speaker that day, but he couldn't get there for some reason. I want to say that, I don't know, he's like stuck in Norway at the time, or just it didn't work out. He was supposed to be the person, but it ended up not working out. So we had to fill that day. And we had just spent 5 days teaching Proflyer training, which is like high intensity, exhausting. I always spend that bonus day when somebody else teaches. I always spend it like hanging out in the back and just enjoying that I get a, benefit from somebody else's teaching. But we had to fill it somehow. And we didn't have anybody else. It was kind of last minute. We didn't have anybody else as a replacement. So I ended up guiding people in a group, an introspective group experience. And while I did that, because I was starting to study Jung's work, which was also interest based, I started talking about sort of these archetypes of, Jung's archetypes of self. And during the day, I was guiding and leading and talking to people individually. And I ended up doing group coaching that was transformational for a couple of people. And I went, oh, wow, that was amazing. So then the next time that situation happened, I did it again, and it was even more transformational. And that's right before we started Personality Life Path. And Personality Life Path became the program that we now do transformational work through. And I think it was after the second PLP, the second Personality Life Path, I went, oh, that's what I do. That's what I am. That's the widget I am in the universe. And I would say that Dharma just hit me. I was like, that's what I do. So when we were talking about purpose or Dharma, I went back and tried to figure out what the formula was for myself and thought, okay, so what were the things I could pick out there?
Yeah. Can I mention a couple of things I noticed before you jump into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to just do a couple of things. I wrote a couple of notes down. One thing is, so you found purpose through all of this, but one key thing is we did this talk back at our Washington, D.C. personality profiler training.
Yeah.
We talked about your message.
Yes. You
can find the recording online. I think it's an old podcast. I think it's a good one. Or at least the video. we talked about this. Often our message or what we're here to bring comes out of the mess we had to go through.
Yes.
And it reminds me that the mess of reprogramming your mind, I think that's a key element to this. Your purpose wasn't, I need to reprogram my mind. That's my purpose in life. But in a way, the requirement that you had to do that through, like you need to do that, you had to escape your religion. And then the substrate of your mind is gone. Like all the architecture of your mind was based on that religion you left. So you're like, okay, well, I have to decide what my core principles are now outside of that. Mm-hmm. My core beliefs and principles, building blocks of like fundamentals. So you reconstruct it from scratch. That was a messy, difficult, challenging, painful process. Like you just kind of like, that's a one line item here in the Personality Hacker podcast. Like, oh yeah, and I had to reprogram my mind. That's like years of trauma and hardship and work and discipline and focus and struggle and failure and trying again. And like that's not just like a quick little statement. That's like a ton of work that you're doing. And you're figuring a bunch of stuff out, not only on how to program your mind, but how minds are programmed in general. Mm-hmm. So now you have this skill that you didn't really set out to do. It was forced upon you based on you making other decisions to exit your religion. And you didn't have to do that. There's other ENTPs that have been in a similar situation that decided not to go and reconstruct their mind. They just left the religion and connected to a new religion.
Right.
And went, I'll just take the same building blocks that are structured in my mind, and I'll just change the content out.
Yes.
So instead of this God, I'll have this God. Instead of this book this holy book, I'll have this holy book. Instead of this rite of passage, I'll have this rite of passage, whatever. Like they just flop in new content and they keep the same, or even against the religion they left.
Yeah.
That's still new content, but the same framework.
I was going to say, even if a person ends up going like agnostic or even atheist, a lot of times they're looking for replacements for the vacuums.
Yes. And they're not actually going to the fundamentals and rebuilding. Now, some people are, but that wasn't something that was perfect, but that was key to it because it served you later. And then the other thing I had on here is like personality types. That wasn't really a purpose. It was more of an access point because the work we do is not really about personality types. I mean, it is. That's what we talk about, personality hacker.
Right.
But personality types are the access point to the real work we do.
Yes.
Like it gives us the best access for shadow work through the PLP program, for example, or life purpose, like we're talking about today. Like often personality types are the on-ramps to the highway of the thing that we're here to do with our clients and our people.
Right.
And then the final thing I'll just mention that I noticed, and I'm sure I noticed more, action was part of all of it. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't, I studied this and I read this and I ruminated on this, although there was part of that, but you were doing things. You were changing your behavior. You were changing how you did things. You did different things. You did things you hadn't done before. You stopped doing things. Like it was about actions and non-actions. It was about tangible results in your life. And that can't be discounted. Like, how many people try to find their purpose by just like stewing in their thoughts and their emotions of something?
Yeah.
And I think the talent that you're building, part of why it works so well to unlock or find this is because of the action associated with it. You're actually doing something. So it's not just thought or emotion that you're trying to make your way through.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned all this because I was writing down similar bullet points. So, and I'm not going to, I don't have the arrogance to believe that I'm the model for finding Dharma. I believe that there's probably, in the same way that you can have different systems running and get the same emergent.
Yes.
Right. So you can have very different components, but the emergent is very similar to this other system that has different components. Like, and that's one of the reasons why we have, like, the world is complicated and confusing sometimes. And in the same way where it seems like two systems are almost identical and they have different emergence, that indicates that those systems are not identical. But it's like, just because you have the same result doesn't mean you have the same cause or the same thing going on. So I don't presume to believe that I'm the model for how one finds Dharma, but I have a feeling that there's probably some similar components in here. And the one that you mentioned of action, I wrote down repeatable. And so I was always looking for something that could be replicated. And that includes in some of the programs we put in together, like Personality Life Path. It was actually the second one where I was like, oh, this is what I do, not the first one. So the action isn't just taking action. It's also taking action to test and to have things be replicatable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you were referring to, but it's, but I think just in general, taking action is pretty important, but action is sort of the foundation of everything. It's like, in order to build skill, you have to take action. in order to, to have a mess so that you have a message. I mean, that's also taking action. So I think action taking is definitely a big one. Can I mention a couple of the other? Okay.
Please.
So obviously you mentioned skill development, and I hearkening back to Scott Galloway and Cal Newport, I think if people focus on skill development more than purpose, they're more likely to find purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think focusing on skills that are particularly in alignment with your talents and skills that set you apart, right? Or things that help you have, I mean, you could say a competitive edge in the marketplace or whatever, or like building career capital. But I think what it really is that it's something that you can almost like turn into it's uniquely yours. It's like, it's the thing I come and present to others. It's part of my value. It's part of what I have to offer to other people. And I think the reason why that gets you closer to purpose or Dharma is because Dharma doesn't exist without offering, right? Like that's part of it. Dharma is your place in all of this ecosystem.
Yeah.
So if you come if you don't have anything to offer, then you're not in that sort of like the law of reciprocity and the law of giving and the law of figuring out where you fit in the social ecosystem, right? You're not part of that dharmic law. And so skill development gives you something to offer. It makes it so that you're part of the ecosystem of giving and receiving.
Yeah.
And so I think skill development might be one of the most important nodes in the system to have dialed in.
I agree. And I think what it does is it gives you the ability to take opportunities when they present themselves, and it will show you what opportunities are out there. So as you build skill, you're looking for those skills to be demonstrated in the world. So now you're seeing more possibilities of them being applied, first of all.
Yep.
And then the other thing too in this is that when an opportunity presents itself, well, you have the skill to capitalize on it. I mean, I can remember this moment. I think I mentioned this podcast before. I'm sitting at a conference, 2008 or something. It's like one of those blogging conferences or new media conferences. And everybody's like doing deals and there's these blogs starting up and all this stuff. And I'm just talking to this one woman about, what she does. And she's like, I work for a publishing company and I help new authors. I discover new authors, brand new authors, especially young authors, and help them get their first book done for this like random house or one of the big companies. And she was at this conference looking for bloggers and social media people. I'm like, oh, and she's like, by the way, do you have a book idea that you'd like to pitch to me? And I just like a deer in headlights. I had tons of ideas, but I had no skill in talking to a publisher or pitching the ideas, so I just bottlenecked. I couldn't think of anything. And she's like, oh, well, here's my card. If you ever think of something, contact me. I lost the card like the next day on the airplane home or something. Right. So I never know this woman's name, but I missed a huge opportunity because I didn't have the skill of pitching a book proposal or an idea. I didn't even know I was going to run into this woman, this person that could probably publish a book, years ago and give me a head start on my career. I was kicking myself that I hadn't had skill in being able to pitch somebody or offer something like that in that dynamic. I had some sort of theories around maybe how it would go if I ever had like sort of an opportunity, but you don't think about those real opportunities in your life. So just imagine I had the skill and then opportunity presents itself. I could capitalize on it. Churchill, I mentioned earlier. Churchill was only equipped to rise to the moment of the time he was born and what needed him for his country because of skill. He'd been a statesman for years, right? He'd been oration. He'd built skill around oration and leadership and all these things. So that when the moment comes and the Nazis are at the door, well, he's equipped to step into leadership and help the British people overcome this obstacle during a war. Had he not built that skill, he would not have been equipped for that. And who knows what would have happened to the United Kingdom? Maybe it wouldn't have survived like it did.
Yep.
Who knows?
Who knows?
So the skill I think is so important, like you're talking about.
Well, and you just mentioned a second one that I wrote down, which is opportunity.
Yeah.
And that, that goes to timeline and environment. So you can't really choose your timeline. We have some control over our environment if we're lucky, right? Some people don't. Some people have no control over their environment. They are like that grow where you're planted thing. They are stuck.
Yeah.
Other people have some capacity to move around and to change their environment. But regardless, every environment on a timeline is going to have, even if they're very small, they're going to have opportunities. So the next node in the system is being willing to jump on opportunities, being ready for them when they come. And in that moment, it's like you said, you didn't know that you were going to talk to somebody who was in the publishing world. You didn't know you had to have a pitch ready. But in the moment when you realized that it, like she was like, well, if you ever have an idea, It was like, it would have been best to already have your pitch. The second best thing was to grab her, to take that business card seriously and develop a pitch.
Yeah.
And then the losing of the card, the not getting on it, right? Like all of that. That was allowing an opportunity, letting the antelope on the Serengeti run by. It's like the opportunity's over. So the more opportunities we capitalize on, I don't think it was your Dharma to be a book author.
No.
I don't think. Maybe
I am
it
now.
was.
We've written a book.
Well, but I
it
mean,
wasn't my purpose.
And it's still not your Dharma to have written one.
No.
Right. But that could have led to another relationship, which could have led to another relationship, which eventually could have, gotten you on a different trajectory or path. So every opportunity is a way to open up new opportunities, right? They tend to sort of create themselves. They get into their own generative dynamic. And then now you've got multiple opportunities oftentimes. So the first one is build lots of skills, right? And especially skills that you enjoy. And the second one is to jump on opportunities, to be and that takes action, right? Like you mentioned before. And then another piece of it was commitment, the willingness to commit to something on a long timeline. Scott Galloway talks about how most tax accountants, being a tax accountant is not their purpose. But if they're the best tax accountants, like if they've built a ton of skill, they, I think he says basically like they fly first class and marry people that are more attractive than them, which are two things that they might be passionate about.
Fair enough.
So that willingness to commit to something and to see it through until you become great.
Yeah.
So it's not just being good, it's being great and committing. Then I think, and I feel like that's what I did with coaching. Like I started coaching 1 million years ago and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't satisfied with just enjoying it. I was like, no, I want to be great at this. And so I committed to it for a long time. And I wouldn't say that at any point was coaching my Dharma. I would still say it's not really technically it.
Juices you up pretty much though.
It juices me up.
You seem to really enjoy
I love
helping
it.
people.
I enjoy it. It's a flow state for me for sure. But Dharma is what I do at Personality Life Path, right? And coaching helped me get there. So I had to commit to it. I had to be willing to do it for well over a decade before it helped me find, the path, right? The ultimate thing. So commitment is a big one. And then I've got here type preferences. And this is where personality type does come in.
Yes.
Knowing that I get into flow when all 4 of my preferred functions are operating together at the right balance. And we talk about this in our owner's manual. We talk about how you can find flow, getting all 4 of your functions, right, sort of in the right amount at the right time. Knowing that has helped me discover what my Dharma is, because my Dharma would never be a tax accountant, because that would require me to focus on functions that are not preferred and that are weaker. And so I probably would never become the world's best tax accountant. But there's a lot of different possible things. Keep hitting my microphone. There's a lot of different possible things on the table that do utilize my type preferences of extroverted intuition, exploration, introverted thinking accuracy, and extroverted feeling, harmony, and introverted sensing memory. All 4 of those. But it needs to be leaning much heavier on my intuition and thinking than on my feeling and my sensing. And if I can have something that I've built skill in, I have natural talent, I've committed to it, I've done it for a long time, I jump on opportunities, I recognize that it might take a while for me to get there, but I find activities that put all of my type preferences in the best place possible, like in the best dynamic possible. I think that's a big one. And so when people say, if I know my type, I should know my career, or I know my type, I should know my purpose, I'd say, what are activities that juice you up, that get all 4 of your function in the right amount? Yeah. Like for me, my intuition needs to be the main thing that I'm leaning on. I need to be guided by intuition. I need to be focused on intuition. The thing that I'm doing needs to light up my intuition and to be a challenge for it, because most things are not challenging for our first function. They're just kind of like, that's just what we do.
Yeah.
So it needs to be challenging, but it also needs to be bringing my thinking. So I need to be in a space of sort of reading energy, understanding the patterns of going on, being able to see things that have not been presented to me specifically, And I also need to be able to bring in articulation and definition and really sort of calibrating and then getting in there like a surgeon. But I also need to be bringing in a sense of compassion and a connection with the person I'm working with, and a sense of bringing others in and making it feel like a rapport, while at the same time doing something I've done many times before, something that I feel confident and comfortable in, that I can really root myself in, something that this is a skill I've built over time. And, but I have to have it in descending order of complexity and descending order of capacity and challenge. And there is one thing that I have done that I'm like, oh, as soon as I do it, I go, oh, this is what I'm made for. Right. And so that I think is what you're looking for. You're looking for a moment that just feels like everything's in alignment. And I couldn't have done it had I not built skill in all of that. I couldn't have done it had I not put myself in those opportunities and committed and been willing to do all of it, even if I never found it. Right. Like even if I never found Dharma, this is still what I'm doing and I'm good at it. And so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I think those at least for me were the key nodes in the system that helped me find that ultimate purpose. And I might just be serially monogamous. This might just be my purpose for a time. And I'm fine with that too.
So have you covered all the nodes that go into I think this is really brilliant though. Like the measuring, I'm hearing you say, is about being in flow. Like your personality, if you look at your 4 cognitive functions, they have just the right amount of stress on each of them.
That's a great way of saying it.
And you're in flow.
Yeah.
And often if you're in that space, you're probably on more of a purpose than you would if you weren't.
Yes.
You're probably closer to your purpose. Like that's a good way to, wow, I'm lit up around all these things. This must be what I'm here on earth to do.
Yes.
Because I can feel it in my entire personality organized this way.
Yeah. And it has to be the right, like you said, the right amount of stress, the right amount of challenge.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that can do that for no matter which personality type you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's not just one thing that matches with each type. It's like there's a quite a bit that could be something that challenges you at the right amount.
Vulnerability is going to be hard here. If you're the thing that I think a lot of people resist is when you have a challenge in your life, it can be very humiliating to overcome that, right? You get kicked out of your religion, you have to reprogram your mind. There's some humiliation there. And so if you to bring that mess as your message, it's like you have to then show all the vulnerable parts of yourself.
Yes.
This is super hard.
Yes. Actually, to go back to that node, that your mess is your message, I think it's a willingness to learn through humiliation, right? That's what a mess is. A mess is usually humiliating.
Yeah.
And I think that you can take a humiliation and you can ameliorate it into something that, because what's the point of that? Why is your mess your message? Because usually it took you 10 years what you can train somebody else to do in 2.
Yes.
Right. That's the point. The point is that you learned all the lessons. You learned all of everything about that was really terrible and tough and awful and difficult. And now you're going to save other people countless time, energy, frustration by saying, well, when I got through it, this is what I learned. But there is vulnerability there.
And I would say that if I had to paint you as an energetic signature of what you do, Antonia, as far as your purpose here, it's to hold people in the midst of the humiliation that they face as they reprogram their minds. I think that's the best way I could articulate it right now. Like, I think that's what you do. Like, I think you help people suffer through that feeling of, man, I'm in a mess right now. I've got to reprogram something. I got to go through a transition, a metamorphosis in my life. And I feel silly. And then you come in with this TI non-judgment, introverted thinking, accuracy, non-judgment for somebody with the compassion of your extroverted feeling or harmony, lit up with your intuition and the stableness of your memory, right? Your introverted sensing, and you hold people in that moment. And so going meta on this entire thing, how do you say that to somebody? There's no elevator pitch for what I just said about what you do.
Right.
I mean, even me articulating it strips it of its weight and its power and what you're actually doing at an energetic level. So what do we tell people?
Right.
When we're messaging or quote unquote marketing something, we're like, well, our personality life path mentorship helps you find your purpose and your pathway, and it does shadow work. And we go into your personality type, and all of that is true. But all of that is just the on-ramp to what's really happening.
Right.
And so I think when we get, and this goes all the way back to the thing I said at the very beginning, it's less about what we're doing, and it's more about who we're being. Because I think if you're really, truly on purpose, it's going to be hard to build an elevator pitch around it. It's going to be really hard to codify it and snapshot it like a trading card and then trade it for value often what has to happen is you have to live a dual life.
Mm-hmm.
You have this secret Dharma purpose that you're running, and then you have to figure out a way to interface with the world around it. Because typically the very things that are at the core of us as humans, like the deepest parts of us that we're here to bring, the resonant parts, the being parts of us, these aren't marketable, Fortune 500 company level branding parts of ourselves. You're not put a little brand on it and shine it up and sell it.
Yeah.
But it's the thing you're here to bring. So, and it's hard to even get a definition around it sometimes because it's more energetic and nuanced and like embodied.
Yeah.
So often what purpose is in the skill building and all of that is you're looking for the interface for the purpose you're supposed to bring in the outside world. So by building skill, you're adding in more and more possible interfaces,
right?
More and more subjects, more and more things you're attuned to and you have talent for. So our talent is with type. We can help people understand their best fit type. We can talk about type on these podcasts. We can talk about personality types all day long. Type. And then people want us to talk more about personality types. They come and ask questions about personality types, et cetera, et cetera. But our purpose isn't to help people understand what a INFJ is or an ENTJ, although that's part of it. That's the pathway to it. Our purpose is to hold people and hold them in energetic space, not hold them physically, but help them hold space for folks as they're going through really challenging transformations in their life.
Right.
That are deeply personal and humiliating and difficult and vulnerable. And they don't want to let go. And we've had to do that ourselves. And so we know the pain and the humiliation of it. But how do you message that? How do you market that? Right. Yeah. So what we do is we keep pushing out personality type, personality life path mentorship, come and be part of this program, go into shadow work, look at where you're going to have the transformation. You're going to have a pathway for your life. And all those things are true, but really energetically, you're making some of the biggest shifts at the core of who you are. Mm-hmm. Like it's identity level change through all of these mechanisms of type and systems thinking and all the things that we use.
Well, and I think that makes sense. And by the way, that was a very nice thing for you to say about me. I appreciate that. I hadn't heard you say what you think that I do.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what you do.
And I appreciate that. I'm very flattered by that description. Though I do think to some extent it's pretty accurate. It's like that's kind of what it feels like. Is that I'm kind of holding somebody when they're going through something pretty rough, and in part because I remember my personal humiliations, right? Like basically being an outcast of everybody that you've ever known and going from a high status person to like the lowest status person that everybody knows, that's a pretty big drop. The humiliation is like, it's hard to conscience. And so having been there and having known what it feels like to have everybody in your life think that you're the worst person that they know now, it's like, okay, well, if you can survive through that, you can get through just about anything. But you can also hold space for somebody else who fears that, who fears that if people know who they really are, they'll hate them and malign them and push them out of the tribe. And thank goodness most people don't have to experience that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you have that purpose in your consciousness, because again, when somebody comes up to you, what do you do for a living? I hold energetic space for people going through humiliating transformations in their life.
Say that.
What? Like people will be confused. So you say, I help people understand their personality type and get along with others. Yeah. And I would say though, lately, I just want to make one more statement here about
I don't
this.
want it to. I've already hogged the conversation.
You didn't hog anything. You are currently helping run operations. We had some staff changes recently, and you're operationally every day meeting with our team and helping do like the detail work. You'd mentioned, I'll never be a good tax accountant. But you kind of find yourself in this sort of accounting management role right now of keeping track of details. And I would say we could say, well, that's not your purpose, but it's certainly part of operating an entity that does provide for your purpose.
Yeah.
And so when we're on purpose, sometimes we have to, again, live dual lives. We have to do a bunch of BS that we think we're above. Like, I'm above this. This isn't my purpose. But it's facilitating something that is truly your purpose. And if you hold that in your sense of self and your consciousness that here's what I'm here to bring to the world, whatever that is, it gives you a lot of energy to do that BS stuff that you don't want to do because you realize it's for that higher purpose that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it enables those things, I think, to be less challenging, like not as painful, not as difficult, not as upsetting, and not as boring.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I think this is why people's dharma or purpose sometimes becomes a vocation and not a career.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't always make money at your purpose.
Yeah.
If you can, you're very fortunate. But there's a lot of people whose purpose is their family. And so they go to work every day to make money to support their family because their family is their dharma. That's their purpose. And you don't make money taking care of your family. You make money to take care of your family.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think for most people, their Dharma or their purpose, unless they're subsidized, unless they're like independently wealthy or somebody is covering them, most people have to do a bunch of stuff to subsidize their purpose or their Dharma. And doing operations. I mean, one of the great things about doing operations for PH is that everybody who works with us is an awesome person.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes life a lot easier. But it still is a lot of detail work, and it's kind of soul crushing sometimes. But like you said, I'm like, well, if I don't do this, then I don't get to do my Dharma. So I guess I'll do this too. And I do think that needs to be accounted for when somebody's trying to find their purpose. Finding your purpose does not necessarily mean that you've found the path to independent wealth, doing the thing you love.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you are going to be able to do just the thing you love or just the thing you're good at, and the universe will reward you.
Are you telling my career as a tintype photographer isn't going to go anywhere, Antonia? I'm not going to make my millions from this?
Well, I mean, that's keep the hope alive, Joel. Go film Eastern White Pines.
There you go.
And see if you can just make money doing that.
So these are some key building blocks. And I think also the last comment I'll make, and you might have some more comments before we wrap up, but different types are going to approach this differently.
Yes.
I don't think purpose has to be global or grand. I mean, some people find a lot of purpose in being a mother or a father.
Absolutely.
Or in doing their day job or being a farmer it doesn't.
Or volunteer work for the community.
Work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like being on the HOA for your community and just helping to make sure the neighborhood's chill, right?
That's
and
right.
Doing well. Like whatever it is for you and the state, and again, where you're planted and the timeline you're on. And maybe people are like, they have a purpose of life, but they're past the contribution element of it, right? Like I'm sure Winston Churchill, he's not on his purpose the last few years of his life necessarily. It was maybe during World War II when that was like his biggest moment to shine. So again, there's a timeline of our life too, where we have more engagement with the purpose that we're here to bring versus not.
Yeah.
So I think we just keep those in mind because it's not always this grand I got to save the world thing that I have. If I don't have that, I have nothing. It's like not all or nothing.
Well, and I can hear this message changing from about 10, 15 years ago. But I do think that if you can find magic in the mundane, if you can find purpose in your day-to-day life, and sometimes, we talked about this last podcast, a lot of us have our dopamine receptors all burnt out because of unearned dopamine.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find joy when your neurotransmitters, when your neurotransmitters are not showing up for you. But I think if we can find beauty in our day-to-day life and without forgetting to build skill, to become great, to honor our type preferences and do things that are challenging to them in the right amount of challenge, and to stick with things and to contribute and to understand that Dharma is about being a part of a bigger system, right? I think if we do all of these things, I think we can find purpose, not necessarily get rich off of, becoming this artist that everybody wants to now buy my art or whatever, but we can we can be spiritually wealthy by doing things that are in alignment with what that we're here to do. And I think more of that is found in the mundane than in the amazing. Like you keep referring to Churchill, which is he had these moments that were incredible. But the reason why you're referring to him is because he is somebody whose name goes down in history and that we all know. Do you know what I mean? But there are people who have had those kinds of moments throughout their life or not those kinds of moments where like there was so much weight on it, but they've had these peak moments. They've had these moments of contribution that were much, much smaller, but no less significant for the individual. Yeah. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for personal significance while you are contributing to others.
Yeah. So you've been listening along to this episode with me and Antonia. You haven't had a microphone, but I do think you probably have a lot of things to offer at this point. You've heard us kind of talk about this back and forth. So what's coming up for you as we talk about this? By the way, I would also tune you into, I think one of the best places to start on the journey of purpose is to really get in touch with your personality type, because it puts you on the pathway of knowing about yourself and what juices you up. So those things that Antonia talked about, if you want to get all 4 of your cognitive functions, technically called cognitive functions, these are ways your mind makes decisions and learns information. If you want to get these humming to their just proper stress levels to feel that flow we were talking about, we actually have an entire module in our personality owner's manuals. We have one for all the 16 types. One module alone talks about getting into flow, like just how to get into flow, what it looks like for your type to be into flow, what could this feel like, some of these ideas. And then this is a great launching place for you on your journey for purpose, or maybe you're already on your purpose. You just want to add to it and know more about how you're wired. This is a great opportunity. So I recommend, well, I'll say 2 things. Head over to personalityhacker.com and get the owner's manual for your personality type and start this journey. Start down this road of purpose in your life, of really knowing your personality type on that side. If you want to join a PLP or something like that, welcome you to do that too. But start there. And while you're at personalityhacker.com, getting your owner's manual for your personality type, under this podcast, tell us what you're thinking. What's coming up for you? You have questions, comments? Do you have a story to share with us about finding your Dharma or purpose in life? And we kind of got away from the word Dharma, but really we're talking about Dharma, even more than purpose, I think.
Yeah.
What is your Dharma? Have you found it? Are you on the hunt for it? Is it something you struggle with? Do you have multiple ones? Have they evolved over time? Like, I want to hear about this. So come over to personalityhacker.com, make your voice heard. Let's get a conversation, a discussion started under this podcast about how people are resonating with this, and your voice could kick it off. So come over and make your voice heard.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed the podcast, you can subscribe to us on whatever platform you found. There's Apple Podcasts, and then there's Spotify or Spotify. And they're what?
YouTubes.
The YouTubes. Well, I was going to go to the video podcast next, Joel, but don't throw me off my rhythm, man.
I don't think people even separate podcast, video, and audio anymore. They just call them podcasts, don't they? Do they mean? Oh, actually, I don't know.
I don't know, actually. I don't know what the young people are doing these days. I'm an old fogey that's been doing this podcasting thing for a long time, so I just remember how it was introduced to me. So there's audio podcasts on Spotify and Apple Podcasts on a bunch of different platforms. So please feel free to subscribe wherever you found us. But we also have a video podcast, as Joel mentioned, which you might not create any distinction between, but I do because I'm just old. So if you found us on YouTube, or if you want to watch the video podcast, go to YouTube and go Personality Hacker, and then you'll see this podcast show up on video. And if you enjoy it, you can like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes to come out. And and as Joel mentioned, you can also go find yourself a copy of the owner's manual from personalityhacker.com. Totally recommend it.
Yeah, my name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Looking forward to hearing about your Dharma. We'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.